they said on your Hebrew birthday is a time where you have an additional power, additional koach for blessings. So I want to give a blessing to Rabbi Zion Lexx, to the entire African American community, that that we in his lifetime, achieve, our potential, and we're able to identify what makes us unique, and to be able to contribute it on an interpersonal level, on a communal level, and on the international level, and that we are able to see the different experiences of pain, of sadness that we've had throughout our history in North America, and to be able to expand our consciousness back to the land of Israel, and to go through that process through Africa, through the migrations from the west of Africa to the Central Africa with Congo and the Bantus, all the way back to Eretz Israel, the Holy Land, because many of us, we are descendants of the Israelite tribes that were put on the slave ships on the west of Africa. That's who we are. We have the Halachic status of being children. It's a term, but I'm saying in English, it's a term that is for children that are captured by non-Jews and raised in a non-Jewish environment.
Stop right there. And I have to stop you. Why I must stop you? Because this is groundbreaking, and I want to make sure everyone is processing what you just said. Now, we spoke behind the scenes about talking about this publicly for some time now. This is the very first time that you're saying this publicly on this platform. So I want you to rewind a bit and say that again. What is the status that we enjoy? Please do repeat yourself.
Yeah, so in terms of like, anytime you want to classify something or understand something or bring the different laws of the Torah to something, it has to have a classification, right? Whether it's something that, like, say, if we're talking about inanimate objects, right? So something that is owned by a person or not owned by a person, something that was left behind versus something that was lost, right? There's all different types of statuses. So when it comes to individuals and their relationship to the Torah, there's all different classifications because there've been so many different situations throughout history. And so the rabbis have a particular status of, it's an overall term. The overall term is basically children that were a child that was captured by non-Jews, okay, and raised in a non-Jewish environment. And so they don't know that they're Jewish. They don't know that they're Israelites. That individual or group of people have no idea because they were captured and put in, whether it's slavery or indentured servitude, whatever they are, but they have no idea where they come from. So that's the classification that African Americans would follow underneath, that went through chattel slavery, that came on slave ships and were took from the coast of Africa and were Igbo, but there's many other tribes too that were Israelite tribes, not just the Igbo tribes. And we came to North America, and North America strategically wiped away our history. The whole education system, all their historians, all their data, all their statistics was all strategically designed to take a group of people and deny their existence, and to basically make them into the first Americans, right? Which are people that don't have any identity outside of that land, right? And whatever that land has imposed on them. And so the reason why that is significant, because then there's certain halachic responsibilities that the Jewish community has to help those people come back, right? To help those people be able to return to who they are, and they're not considered, they're not converts.
That's right.
We're not converts. I am not a convert.
Thank you.
I am a person who went through a halachic process of reconnecting, meaning I did the bris milah, I mean circumcision. I went into the mikveh. I went and said the bracha inside the mikveh, and I had every intentions to keep all the Torah commandments, written and rabbinical. When I was in that, when I went into the mikveh, that was my intentions, and that's what I'm still holding by today. However, it's not the same process of a person who is from a foreign nation who's joining the Jewish people. I'm in the same context as the Jewish people that were in the desert before they came in this portion.
That's
Before they
right.
went into Eretz Israel, they had to recircumcise. They had to circumcise themselves.
That's right.
So I did the same thing that they did in the generation of Yehoshua, right? Ben Nun. I did the same thing. So the conversation is now is to spread this idea, among in the Jewish community, because no one has education on each other. You know what I mean?
That's right.
There's a huge gap in terms of knowledge between all different groups in Judaism, let alone people like ourselves who are on the outside completely, right? So, so that's part of my work, is to bring that awareness inside the Jewish community and the African American community, and to create guidelines to help people return. Now, the thing is, it's not just about, you know, having a bris milah, which is a circumcision or drawing blood, whatever the situation is, because most of us were already circumcised,
Yeah.
in North America. So we're talking about the process of drawing blood.
Right.
But the thing is saying that the 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 issue is being able to um, is to regain the process of taking on the entire Torah,
That's
right?
right.
And to take on all the requirements and all these things. And it's not just enough to do those actions. You have to reconnect to the people in Africa.
That's right.
You
That's
have to
right.
you reconnect. There's a kolana ceremony that they have in Igbo land.
Right.
That's going to be part of the requirement to complete this process. So people are going to have to make the pilgrimage
That's right.
to to Nigeria and to those other places, and reconnect to those tribes there, and to give charity, and to go through the process of reacclimation. For some people, may even take on Igbo names,
Right.
these types of things. But it's not complete unless we connect to Africa,
The
because
place
in order to go
where the atrocity took place initially.
exactly, and from there, that's a process leading back to Eretz Israel, the Holy Land, where I'm at now. So it's a big work. I'm already planning my trip to go to Nigeria. I plan to stay there for an extended period of time and to learn with the elders there, among many other things. And so it's part of the process of returning, is not just the circumcision and going to the mikvah, but actually reconnecting to those African tribes that are and to connect to those traditions. Because one of the challenges that the chief Rabbi Pinchas Eliyahu points out in a Pesach that he wrote a few years back, which was a response to Rabbi Chaim Kanetsky in Blessed Memories Pesach on the Igbo tribes being Israelites. Rabbi Pinchas adds along with that in his writings that it's not enough just for people to go through the process of entering the covenant. They also have to connect to their ethnic origins,
That's
and to
right.
be able to bring those traditions into their life. Now, however, in North America, we're going to have our own traditions, because as much as we're going to connect to Africa and make that relationship, that kinyan between us and in those surrounding places, Ghana for some people as well, but it's also that we have to take our culture, which is largely hip hop culture, and we're going to have to be able to take all the elements of hip hop culture, and we're going to have to hold them up to the halacha in the Torah, right? And so whether it's the way we dress, whether it's the way we talk, whether it's the way that we eat, what we eat, when we eat, how we do all those different things, we're going to have to take those elements and be able to elevate them, right? Many of the songs that you hear a lot of my Ashkenazi brothers sing on Shabbat and different things, a lot of those things were they learned by watching the non-Jews. Same thing with Sephardic brothers. They learned by the non-Jews, songs, different traditions, certain foods, meals. So we should be taking our culture and to be able to re-explain the Black experience through Halachic terms, right? And to elevate our whole experience from the frames of halakha. So yes, we are going to connect with the Africans, and we're going to connect with the Igbo people specifically, and those surrounding Israelite tribes. But what's more important, arguably, is to be able to take Black history and to elevate it to a place of kedusha, in a
That's
place that
right.
we could see God's love, God's continuance, and God's promise to his children, even the ones that even know who they were, and be able to move forward into a new era.
That is so powerful to reacclimate ourselves and elevate ourselves to a place of kedusha, a place of holiness. Now, just for clarity, I'm going to repeat some of what you said. And I need to do so because, again, this is ground breaking. You know, we had spoke even before the summer, and you told me that this was coming, that yourself and the chief rabbi and several others were working behind the scenes to make this thing happen. You even exposed me to a lengthy document that showed me details of what this looks like on paper halachically. And so, for our audience's clarity, I want to say, understand and process what is being said in this moment. We fall under a very specific halachic stance that, in essence, allows us to return, but not without the performance of certain rituals and rites as well. We essentially fall under the line of those who were taken captive forcefully, placed in adjacent lands, far and distant lands, either as indentured servants or forced into servitude as slaves. And so, those of us who grew up not knowing who we were and therefore not applying Torah, everyone must think in this moment, how liable should that person be in terms of their responsibility to uphold and keep that which they knew not even was theirs? So, what is drawn up in paper by these amazing rabbis is not only a pathway towards reclaiming our name, not through social media, not through word of mouth, but through us one to another, but most important, as it should be done before the creator of heaven and earth, Hashem, in the way in which has been outlined from the Torah of Moshe. That's important. And this does not cut or diminish the work of any rabbis in the Israelite community that have been awakened to these truths, but had not yet acclimated to how this can look on paper and how this can perfectly mesh with the word of Torah, meaning the process of return. So I just want you to repeat again, our chief rabbi, if you don't mind, say for the audience's clarity, and I'll even spell it out in the chat, what is the specific name of the halakhic stance that we would fall under? With
Yes,
the
Tinok Shenishba. Yeah, it basically the halachic premises. What do you do? What is the context of a child or children who were captured by
Okay.
non-Jews and grew up in a non-Jewish environment with no identity of their Judaism or who they were, and then at some point become awakened to that reality? How do we deal with it? That's the classification of where we're at. And so there's different opinions on how to deal with it, right?
Okay.
So the way that we are addressing that opinion, or the way that we're addressing it with the strength of the Chief Rabbinate of Africa, is to have a process of reacclimation. And we're using the same structure that was created by Rabbi Avadia Yosef, who dealt with the issues with the Ethiopians.
That's
right?
right.
Because the Ethiopians had a lot of different issues where they didn't have the oral Torah. They had marriages where they didn't, but they didn't have divorces properly. It was a whole big mess, right? In terms of dealing with it from a halakhic standpoint. But Avadia Yosef, in his deep wisdom and blessed memory, was able to configure the halakhic principles to deal with a lot of these issues. So, for example, if we're saying that like, for example, women, right, who were captured as slaves that were married, right? Well, if they were captured as slaves and they were brought to America and they were forced to breed with other men and even slave masters, those children would be under the classification of mamzerim, right?
Unfortunately, but yes.
Unfortunately, right? But the thing is, if you look at how Rabbi Avadia Yosef understood the Ethiopians, he understood that because they didn't have the oral Torah, that they didn't necessarily have what we call halachic marriages. They had spiritual ceremonies, things like this, but it was nothing binding as it relates to the halacha with men and women. So there would be no need to give a divorce document, which means there wasn't a marriage. So if a woman who's not married halachically has a child with one man or another man, it's not an issue on the child. You know what I'm saying? Because there was no infidelity. So we use different tools like that to deal with a lot of the issues. So none of really what we are using as tools is our own imagination, or as we say, spara, our intellect, anything like that. We're using the same halakhic principles that Avadia Yosef used, and also Rabbi Chaim Kanetsky. Now, underneath that, we have two other rabbis who really go into this in a even more practical level, which is Chief Rabbi Pinchas and also Rabbi Eliezer Demota, who you've had on your show
Yes.
before. So both of them rule in different ways. They rule that in terms of how they reacclimate, right? So Rabbi Demota is more in the frame of Sephardic Shita, like their perspective.
Yes.
And Rabbi Pinchas is more in the frame of Mikubalim, in the frame of Kabbalah, right? And using those elements. So they're both taking this, they're both dealing with the same issue, but from a different context. But the thing that Rabbi Pinchas brought out, and what I was touching on earlier, was the fact that Rabbi Pinchas talks about how, Chief Rabbi Pinchas talks about how important it is to have culture, and your culture and where you come from, a part of your halakhic observance of Torah. And that's what's been missing in this whole conversation with us. One, we didn't have a halakhic classification to even understand who we are in terms of the Torah law. Second thing is we didn't have. We didn't. Most people, when they convert, they do Ashkenaz, Sephardic, or Mizrahi. Now we saw with the Ethiopians that came to Israel, they had a 2,000 long history where they were observant, they were religious, the whole thing, but they had their own culture, they had their own traditions. But many Ethiopians, when they came to America, left those traditions and they took on Sephardic and Ashkenaz and Mizrahi, which are all great traditions, but they don't necessarily apply to them as individuals. So we saw within one generation a completely observant community at the way that they understood observance. Now their next generation is not observant at all, right? The high majority, right? And they're not religious. And Chief Rabbi Pinchas's conclusion was because they did not keep their tradition. They let their tradition go. They let the teachings of their sages, the passed down traditions by, and they took that and brought in, the new iPhone, right, type of a thing, right? And so, and not to downplay it, but it's just to say, if we're trying to understand our identity as African Americans within the halakhic context, we have to be able to see everything that we've experienced, whether it's the great moments of all the great inventions and innovations, knowing that those things came from God as a reminder of us seeing the connection that we have to the Creator to manifest nuances, right?
Okay.
And to manifest economic opportunities, even though many of those things were took from us and the patents were stolen. The point is the saying that we still were given those inspirations. At the same time, we had sad things like slavery, like Jim Crow, like racism, like the creation of the prison industrial complex. But we have to see all of those things from the context of building us to get to the point where we are right now, right? Which is like we went through all the bruises and all the bumps, and we can say, hey, you know what? We're where are we at today, and where are we going in terms of our relationship with God as a collective community? And again, that's to say that every person who define themselves as Black is connected to this. I'm talking specifically to people who come from the transatlantic slave trade, who were indentured servitude slaves here in America, who come from the west of Africa and are able to show that through DNA. We got DNA, not that DNA proves anyone's connection to God, but it does show location.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And from those tools, we could build up. You going to say something?
Absolutely. Well, what I was going to say is that you're right on key. You're right on par when you say that This is not a claim where someone says, because I'm black and I'm living in America, I must be an Israelite. I must be an ancient Jew. This is something that really has to be demonstrated and accounted for as much as the evidence available can support, in lieu and in light of what the Halakha has to say, our Torah has to say. The two have to mesh. And so the challenges that we face, obviously, are, families were divided and separated, and a lot of people don't know, their origins. A lot of people didn't grow up with either their mother, and some people, unfortunately, mother or father, right? That's where things like DNA can help, like you said. That's where things like, knowing a family's oral history, right, can help in some way. And I think that that's very, very important that you're pointing that out. I want to say that even the timing of this announcement here on this platform is crucial. First and foremost, Yom Huladet Samayach, Chief Rabbi Mordechai. Happy birthday to you. Secondly, this is Torah portion Kitavo, which describes what needs to be done when we enter the land. And when we come into the covenant, part of the Berit, the covenant that the Creator promised through Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, is not just that we would receive and inherit the Torah, but that we would also receive and inherit the land. That is part of the Berit, part of the covenant. So it's just unique, monumentally unique to me in this moment, that everything is always in Hashem's timing. You and I were trying to reconnect for quite some time, and our schedules may have clashed, and then we lost touch. But here we are right now in this moment. Here you are making this announcement, and this week's Torah portion is that of Kitavo, and we're in the month of Elul. Somebody please talk to me when I say that we know that we are in Hashem's divine timing. Amen. In this moment. You can't make this up. All right? We didn't plan this. This happened that way. So